What is up, guys? Rick Cactus here, and today we are going to be discussing the best class for grinding public events in Destiny 2. Now, in D2, public events are certainly more rewarding than their Destiny 1 counterparts. Grinding public events, if there's a faction rally ongoing, is one of the best ways to get faction tokens. It's one of the best ways to level up your character and just gain experience in general for things like bright engrams. And most importantly, grinding public events, especially heroic public events, is the best way to grind for exotic engrams. So you want a class that's capable of not only doing public events, but doing them solo, doing them fast, so you can do a lot in a short amount of time, and that's what we're going over in this video. Now, there's actually a lot of options to use when talking about a good public event grinding build. I do have a final build that is just set in stone that I think is probably the best one that I used myself, but we are going to keep it a little more open, talk about more options you can use that suit more than one playstyle. So, let's get started with the most important aspect in this build, and that is your power weapon. Yes, that's right. Your power weapon is the most important factor in your public events build. And that's because power weapons are very good at dealing with groups of enemies and or singleton powerful enemies, both of which you're going to encounter when you're doing public events. So choosing the wrong power weapon is really going to hurt you. Now, some great exotic power weapons that you may want to consider are, firstly, like kind of in third place I would say, the Merciless Exotic Fusion Rifle. This weapon is absolutely fantastic. It packs a punch, doing a lot of damage per shot, so it's great at dealing with just normal enemies, but also the fire rate is going to speed up if you shoot an enemy and don't kill it, which is perfect for DPS output against boss-like enemies. So it's going to be a really good choice, solid choice, and it was sold by Xur, so it is in a lot of people's inventories. Now, a slightly harder to get option, but still a fantastic option, is the Legend of Acreus Raid Shotgun. This is basically a rocket launcher in shotgun form. You know, you're only going to get one ammunition when you pick up a heavy ammo pack, but it does phenomenal damage. If there's a bunch of enemies in front of you and you shoot the Legend of Acreus, all of those enemies die. It can take out most yellow health enemies with a single shot, which is great for ammo consumption, and just how much damage it's capable of doing is also great for damaging the boss at the end of a public event. And because it's doing so much damage per shot, it can be quite decent at activating heroic objectives. For example, if you're doing a glimmer extraction, you can very easily destroy the mining devices with only a few shots of the Legend of Acreus. But the best exotic power weapon, in my opinion, to use when grinding public events is the Wardcliff Coil. The Wardcliff Coil is absolutely fantastic at taking down groups of enemies. A single shot from this rocket launcher will decimate an entire plane of existence basically and kill so many basic enemies. But also, it's very good at dealing with powerful enemies and boss enemies. A single shot does do quite a good amount of damage. But the reason it's my number one choice to use in your power slot is because it is so unbelievably good at activating heroic objectives in your public events. A single shot from the Wardcliff Coil can do so much stuff. Again, in glimmer extractions, it kills the mining devices so quickly. If you're doing the Cabal mining public event, when it's telling everyone to evacuate, you can destroy one of those vents in a single shot if you land all of your Wardcliff Coil rockets. It's unbelievable. And in Taken Blight public events, I think it might actually be a little glitched, but it does insane damage against the Blight. It does like 2,000 damage per rocket. So with only a few shots, you can activate the heroic mode of that pub event. And otherwise, you're shooting it for literally minutes with your normal weapons. Now, although the Wardcliff Coil is absolutely my top pick, if you don't have it or you want to use an exotic somewhere else, some legendary power weapons I would recommend are firstly any rocket launcher with cluster bombs. Those are going to be fantastic for killing enemies, doing damage to bosses, and activating heroic objectives. Other things include the Hawthorne's Field Forged Shotgun. That's a very, very powerful weapon, as is the main ingredient fusion rifle. The Rampage actually works wonders in public events, so look at those as some possible legendary alternatives to those exotics. Now, moving on from there, what should you pick in your energy slot? Well, I would simply recommend an auto rifle. Auto rifles are fantastic in PvE, their damage output is just miles ahead of some of the other weapon types, and there's a lot of great energy auto rifles in Destiny 2. Something like the Uriel's Gift is the pretty obvious choice here. Yes, it doesn't have something like Rampage, that's a perk that lends itself to PvE, but it's fantastically accurate, fantastically easy to use, and the extra flinch caused by high caliber rounds is going to affect PvE enemies as well, so that's probably my number one choice. However, you could make an argument for the Number Future War Cult auto rifle. The High Impact Reserves perk, although it's a very minor damage increase, really minor, it is still a damage increase, and therefore your damage output, if you're just firing non-stop against a boss, is going to be higher with something like the Number than the Uriel's Gift in PvE. Also, the 720 rounds per minute auto rifles like the Perseverance are great choices as well. Now, moving on from there, we have our Kinetic Weapons slot. Now, of course, you could double up on auto rifles using something like the Origin Story or even the new Dead Orbit fast-firing auto rifle. The Origin Story being absolutely fantastic with Rampage, but I would actually recommend in my Kinetic slot the better Devil's Hand Cannon. Although it doesn't have the raw damage output as something like an auto rifle, it is unbelievably good at taking down base level adds because of its explosive rounds perk. A single shot can kill, if not at least stun, multiple enemies at the same time, which is exactly what you want. There's like 5 scions shooting at you, couple of shots, all 5 of them are recoiling back from the damage they've just received, and they're stopping to shoot you, which is the main goal here. It's just an all-around very, very good weapon. The explosive rounds can get around some tricky situations involving, Cabal phalanxes and stuff like that, and it's just a very, very solid option to deal with those normal adds. And if you're firing it as fast as you can against a boss, it's not going to be terrible there either, especially if you're landing all of your crits. Now, moving on from there, let's talk about your subclass. Now, to be frank, there's a lot of great choices for subclasses and builds that you can use easily and effectively in PvE for grinding public events. So I'm just going to shout out for each different class my kind of favorite combination of a certain subclass, a certain build, and then an exotic armor counterpart to make that subclass so much better for public events. Starting here with the Warlock, I think the Stormcaller Warlock is a great choice. It gives you access to pulse grenades, which are incredibly powerful, incredibly good at taking down adds, incredibly good at throwing at certain objectives to activate the heroic mode, and incredibly good at bosses. Like, they're great all around for so many different things in public events. And in addition to that, you also have a super with the Stormcaller that's just going to devastate adds and does decent damage against bosses and more powerful enemies as well. But that Stormcaller, wow, that thing can absolutely devastate an entire PvE area. Now, to back this up, you want to be using the Crown of Tempest's exotic helmet. The exotic perk Conduction Tines makes it so that arc ability kills increase the recharge rate of your arc abilities. So, if you're using something like your incredibly powerful grenades, your other arc abilities are going to charge faster. It just makes it so that you can utilize your grenades, your super, all of your arc abilities a lot more often when using this exotic helmet. And moving on from there, we have the Titan. And here I would also recommend the Arc subclass with the Striker. Just like I said previously, pulse grenades are phenomenal, and the Striker gets access to 2 of them. 2 pulse grenades can do absolutely insane damage output within a single span of one public event, especially if you're activating heroic. Make sure when you're using this subclass, and the Stormcaller mind you, that you're using a mod that increases your arc grenade recharge rate. That's very helpful for just increasing your overall output. But the super of the Striker is fantastic as well, capable of clearing out just tons of adds and also pretty decent at damaging singleton enemies. There's nothing wrong with popping your Fists of Havoc and just melting a single boss every time you slam, especially if you get the combo going of kneeing and then slamming right after. You can actually get a little bit more damage than normal, but that's just going to pretty much single-handedly melt or do more than half damage to a boss enemy at the end of a public event, and that can be extremely helpful. Now, unfortunately, the Titan doesn't really have an exotic armor piece that's going to accentuate these abilities too much like the Warlock did. However, I would recommend the exotic helmet, an insurmountable skull fort. This Titan helmet makes it so that when you are using shoulder charge, if you kill an enemy with shoulder charge, you're going to start health regeneration, incredibly useful, and instantly regenerate your shoulder charge. So you can quite literally go infinite with shoulder charges, running in there, killing a Scion or any number of basic enemies in a public event, and then instantly recharging, running again, smacking a group of enemies as well. So shoulder charge is also going to damage multiple enemies in an area of effect. So you can kill, like, it's easy to kill 5 enemies with a single shoulder charge, get it right back, and start regenning health. Like, you can basically do public events shoulder charging until the boss comes, and then you maybe have to throw a pulse grenade or 2. But it is very fun to use, and the health regeneration is actually pretty clutch in a variety of scenarios. And continuing on from there, we have the Hunter. And here, I'm also going to recommend the Arc subclass with the Arc Strider. It's just a very powerful overall subclass, and it is absolutely fantastic when you combine it with the exotic chest armor, the Radiant Flux. This is going to extend your duration that your pole dancer ability, just kidding, that your arc staff actually has. But here's the thing, arc staff by itself as a super lasts for a very long time. Like, it's going to outlast a normal Striker Titan any day of the week. Radiant Flux increases this to absurd amounts. I'm not joking when I'm saying I have, in solo public events, seen the boss spawn. Like, for example, when we're doing the Cabal Drill public event. I pop my Arc Strider with my Radiant Flux, and I just start smacking. And by the end of it, I still have super, and I've killed the boss by myself. Not many supers in the game can come even close to that amount of overall damage output. The amount of time your super lasts with Radiant Flux is going to be unbelievably good at taking out bosses and also taking out base enemies. Now, there are some minor public events. I'm thinking the Ether Harvest public event when you're fighting the Servitor, where that's floating in the air and your super isn't that great there, but you can just use it when the 3 smaller Servitors spawn, kill all 3 of them with ease, and then trigger the heroic ability in that public event. But yeah, the combination of these 2, the subclass and the exotic chest armor, is going to give you damage output that other subclasses can only dream of. Now, unfortunately, you don't get pulse grenades, but you do have some alternatives. And so, with all of that being said, here is my personal public event grinding class. It's a Striker Titan with 2 pulse grenades, making sure, and an armor piece that does have faster arc grenade recharge. My kinetic weapon is a better Devil's Hand cannon, my energy weapon is the Uriel's Gift auto rifle, and my power weapon is the exotic Wardcliff coil rocket launcher. But if you don't have these specific gear pieces, or you prefer a different class, that's why I provided a big list of alternatives, so you guys should still be able to create an awesome public event grinding class of your own. In any event, guys, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found it informative. Now, if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you actually want to get notified of new uploads, be sure to press the bell beside subscribe. If you guys want to support the channel and myself, check out the official merchandise linked in the description down below. Also down there is my Twitter, best place to get in contact with me and get some sick Destiny memes. That's at RickCacus. Also down in the description is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.